Liverpool pulled away at the top of the Premier League with a very controlled and commanding performance over Newcastle United. But I think the talking point has to be their win over Manchester City at the weekend. There were doubts about Liverpool, how they will perform after facing Everton, Aston Villa, uh, a tough game against Wolves, Manchester City, and then Newcastle. And they've actually extended the lead at the top of the table. So, in today's episode, we'll obviously be talking about that and also tipping into maybe Liverpool finding finally the Jorginho Wijnaldum replacement, or maybe even a Steven Gerrard replacement in Dominic Szoboszlai. But let's
Wow,
first,
big
yeah,
call.
yeah. But let's first start with the game at the Etihad. Liverpool going there. Fairly confident, but obviously seeing them stutter a bit, and there was talk of Arsenal cutting the gap to 5 points and then having a game in hand, and then the title race being bang on. But Arsenal actually helped Liverpool in a way by losing to West Ham.
Yeah.
A terrible, terrible performance, going down to 10 men, basically creating nothing. And then Liverpool, on the other hand, actually showed the gulf in class, I think, between the two managers. While there are plaudits and great things that should be said about Arteta for what he has done at Arsenal, he just can't seem to push them into the next gear. Arne Slot, for uh, all the superstars that he has, and he has quite a few big names, he has been willing to give up possession quite a few times.
Yep.
And we saw that against Manchester City. First of all, we didn't start with a recognized centre forward. It was Curtis Jones and Dominic Szoboszlai playing as the number 10s and moving back into midfield. I think that caused quite a few problems for the City midfield rather than the defense. And Salah being Salah, uh, he was excellent in that game. I think every single Liverpool player was good. Obviously, this is not the
I
Manchester
think
City.
Mohamed Salah broke like 10 records in that game, right? So
So
I think
it was insane, right? So every single minute he did something, there was a record broken. So I think this is the first time that somebody had scored an assistant against the Premier League champions, home and away, which Salah
Mhm.
did. And then he's broken umpteen other records. I think if we just do an episode on that, it'll be an hour and a half long. But the critical thing is that this was Liverpool's first Premier League win at the Etihad since 2015. Lo and behold, that opened up a 10-point lead. But obviously, the talking point has to be giving up a possession. Manchester City were given the ball and they were told, go do what you want to do. The only big factor was the ball was going to Jeremy Doku. He was up against Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think you messaged me during the
Yeah.
game that, he doesn't seem to be doing anything. He does fancy moves, drops the shoulder and cuts back in and then gives the ball back to someone. No end product from Doku. Trent, for his part, didn't actually defend too well. I think he was beaten a record 12 or 15 times, or at least gone past 12 or 15 times. But it didn't matter in the end. No Haaland for City. And that was just, a kick in the teeth for Arsenal for what happened after that. But Rohit, your thoughts on the City Liverpool game?
Yeah, you made quite a few interesting points there that we can discuss about, right? I think the first one is the gulf in class between Slot and Arteta, right? And obviously we can only comment on, what we are seeing right now. We never know what will happen a couple of years down the line. But Slot is a modern manager, but he's also flexible and he's very similar to Carlo Ancelotti in that sense, right? In the notes I'd basically written down that Liverpool comfortably beat City, just like Real Madrid beat City, about 5 days back before that in the Champions League. They conceded possession and then hit them on the counter. And with the clear, class players that both Liverpool and Real Madrid have, you kind of hurt Man City again and again and win comfortably, right? So I think that is very, very important. The flip side of the coin is, what Chelsea tried to do against Man City. We tried to win, the possession battle, which is like a meaningless battle to win, right? And then City actually hit us on the counter and got in behind us, if you can believe that, and beat us very comfortably, right? So that's just showing like the tactical nous, obviously on Schlotter's part and the tactical flexibility, and then other managers, like Maresca for Chelsea, and then Arteta not having that. And I think that's helped you guys immensely this season, right? And I've said this before, what you guys are on the way to doing is pretty unprecedented. New manager, basically no signings. Let's leave the Chiesa out of it, right? And then you're walking away with the title, right? I think you're 13 points clear. I think 10 games to go. And two of those games are against Leicester and Southampton, bottom of the table, right? So those are sure shot wins. So a couple of weeks away, I think 4 weeks or so away, apart from those two from like being crowned champions, which is amazing, amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So there was this graphic that Sky Sports put out. We'll share it in this in this episode where the earliest Liverpool can win the Premier League, right? So I think there are a couple of scenarios where we could win the Premier League against Spurs
Mhm.
or against Chelsea, and Arsenal would have to give us the guard of honor. Like obviously one of the clubs that have to do that. So uh,
I
yeah,
think you guys are getting the guard of honor regardless, because isn't Arsenal one of the last
Yeah, yeah,
games?
yeah.
I
So,
think,
so like,
yeah.
unless it's like a miracle where we start dropping points like crazy and Arsenal
Yeah.
somehow start winning and scoring goals, the one hilarious outcome it would be that Tottenham players down their tools against us, let us win, and they celebrate the Premier League title with us. Obviously, it's not going to happen like that.
I mean, why not?
Why not? You saw this happen,
Vicarious
right?
pleasure.
So do you
Yeah.
remember that the Aguero goal against I think it was
Yes.
QPR, and
Yeah.
this Jibril Cisse, who's a QPR player, he's celebrating with Samir Nasri, and it makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? But yeah, it's incredible as to what Slot has done. And there is actually a scary thing to this. We've basically played this entire season without a decent center forward.
Mhm.
Darwin Nunes, Luis Diaz has been used as a false nine or a center forward at times. Diogo Jota has been injured for so long. Darwin Nunes, we can't talk about him. Can you imagine if we actually had a functioning, almost a regular goal scoring number nine leading that
Yeah.
line? Can you imagine if we had a left back? This is something that I've been screaming out for since the start of last season. If we had a left back who's actually in line or in tune with our defense, Robertson has made quite a few mistakes, and Simicas is not up to the challenge anymore. Like we could have been another 5 or 6 points ahead at this stage, which is incredible. And the one good thing that Slot said, and I think at least that's what the news is coming out, is that it was partly his decision to not sign any players this summer because he wanted to see what this site was capable of doing and what are the weaknesses. And apparently, now we have to take this with a pinch of salt. Apparently, FSG are ready to give him a war chest and he can go and sign whatever players he wants after some changes
You
are made.
know,
But
yeah.
no, so see, the thing is that why I think we need that is obviously because two teams had off seasons. Let's be honest, Manchester City are
Agreed.
not what they are supposed to be. This is a rebuilding phase. They will be better and stronger next season. Arsenal, for all their failings, there still there are still things that are good for them, and they need to make some signings. Let's be honest, they need a center forward. They probably need another winger or two to cover for Saka. Now, other clubs can also improve. You never know. It might start clicking for Chelsea next season. Who knows? It might start clicking for okay, that's it. I know I was going to say United and Tottenham, but I won't put that. It won't click for them. So you need to be strong, right? And this is something that
Yeah.
Liverpool have not done quite a few times. Is that when they're at the top, when they've won things, they don't necessarily improve the squad.
That's a good point. You
That is
have
what
to reinforce.
you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to reinforce.
But
So that is my fear. Is
yeah.
that Liverpool can be better, but will
Mhm.
FSG do or give them the players that they want? That is to be seen.
I think the interesting thing there is Schlott saying that, he was part of the decision making, and I'm not surprised, right? We know how decisions are made at Liverpool, and we've talked about it multiple times. You have data models, you have scouting, video analysis, and you have the coaches buy-in, right? With Michael Edwards being, at the helm of the club for now. So, and the other thing is, I think Liverpool will obviously invest, like they did invest, right? If you think about it, this victory is basically on the backs of Allison, who was, a big investment. Van Dijk was a big investment. Mo Salah, right? These are investments that you guys made, God knows how far back when, and it's
Eight
still,
years, 8 years,
yeah,
7 years. Jorge Schmadtke, I
yeah,
think he was a sporting director. There's something I tweeted out. He deserves a statue if we win the Premier League title this season. Because it was he who broke the bank and got Szoboszlai, who got Endo, who got Gravenberg, and who got McAllister. And
yeah,
he was
yeah,
ridiculed by a lot of the fans for his
yeah.
transfer dealings at that time. Because we all said that the only reason he got the job was because he knows how to joke with Jurgen Klopp.
No, no. I think that's the cool thing about Liverpool, right? It's not just him; it's probably all the folks behind him as well helping out. Because the Gravenberg one will be an amazingly interesting one to study, right? Because he has so many of the attributes that are needed to I was even looking at his height, right? I saw him the other day and I was like, hey, he's looks like he's almost as tall as Fabinho, and he actually is, right? So, having that height and physicality is important in the center of the pitch. And you guys clearly have your ducks in the row in terms of recruitment, right? And you can kind of see that all of these guys have come out and become pretty huge successes as opposed to some other teams, Chelsea being the one basic example. But I think it's pretty amazing. I think you guys obviously need to figure out a couple of your contracts, right? And then after that, I'm sure that you guys will make decent, investments in the team, because it just doesn't make sense otherwise, right? If you guys are winning, I would say you're almost sure for a double, right? Because you probably beat Newcastle in the League Cup, and then maybe a treble, right? I mean, apart from like a counter-attacking Real Madrid, I don't see who else can beat Liverpool in the Champions League. So let's see. And one more thing I wanted to talk about was the Jeremy Doku thing, right? It was so funny. It was like somebody's playing a video game and they're kind of repeating that move. But there's an interesting thing to discuss there, right? Because although Doku was beating Trent Alexander-Arnold again and again, his end product wasn't there. And in a normal system, you'd have an overlapping left back or somebody else helping out Doku. So, going past a player, he could have passed the ball to somebody. There would have been a runner. But in Pep system, which Maresca also follows, the winger has to not only go past the man, but also pick out the best pass every time and maybe score. Like players like Mahrez used to do this regularly, right? I think so. Getting these young guys, even Savinho on the other wing, right? You're basically asking too much of your wingers at this stage. So I think that's a structural problem. But I think we obviously need to make a lot more episodes about Liverpool's win. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about, one of the main episodes we can basically maybe discuss, what are the similarities between the new players that you have in this title-winning team? I'm just going to call you guys that now. And the 2020, 2019, 2020 title-winning team, right? Because I see quite a few similarities like between players like Fabinho and Gravenberch, and then we talked about Wijnaldum and we talked about Szoboszlai. He's been playing very well. I think that'll be very interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so regarding Szoboszlai, I think he was ridiculed at the end of last season because unfortunately, Jurgen Klopp did not know how to get the best out of him. I think that was happening to a few players like Gravenberch also. Jurgen didn't know what to do with him. And we saw the likes of Cody Gakpo playing in center midfield as a center forward. But this is the thing about Slot that I said from day one. He knows how to improve players. That's the reason we got him. It's not because he will go out and splash 80 million to sign someone. He'll actually improve that 20, 30, 40 million player and make him into an 80 million player. So Szoboszlai, we've done a Gravenberch episode, I think, a few weeks back, but Szoboszlai deserves a lot of credit for how he has been, at least in the last 4 5 months, I think, sorry. Like he runs his socks off. This guy does the work of two midfielders. Like it is insane as to, I mean, he has 4 or 5 lungs. It's incredible. So the only downside of him running around so much was that obviously he wasn't that uh, proficient in front of goal. But that seems to be changing now. I think he's getting used to playing in the system.
Yeah.
He scored, I think, 2 goals in the last 2 games. I think he got
And
an assist.
amazing finishes, right? Like these
Yeah.
are very fundamentals, right? This is not like a hot streak that he's having. He's like showing like really good technique in both of the finishes that he did, at least in the last 2 games. So I think, he's just getting some of his confidence back.
True, true. And the funny thing is that he was scoring goals at his time at Leipzig. I
Yeah.
don't know what happened. He came to Liverpool and just completely forgot about it. And it's
First
great
season,
because,
maybe?
yeah, first season could be. So it's
Yeah.
great to see him doing well. Obviously, I said that, we are comparing him to Steven Gerrard. I think I jumped the gun a little bit
Yeah,
because,
you went too
yeah,
far.
I went
I
too
was like,
far.
what?
So, yeah, it's a little too much. But I'm hoping he does become that because we need
Yeah.
some kind of a dynamo in midfield,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Gerrard was. But
Mhm.
Szoboszlai is just going great guns. And funny thing is that they were talking about that goal that Salah scored against Man City, that great corner routine, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So apparently, right? Szoboszlai was supposed to do the flick to Curtis Jones, who's at the edge of the box, and he mispassed it. Like it wasn't supposed to go to Salah.
Yeah. That seemed, yeah, that either seemed like an amazing pass
Like
or
it
it
was so
seemed like a
inch
fluke.
perfect. Like the City player was
Yeah.
just like a centimeter or two away from nicking away. But anyway, great stuff from Szoboszlai. Salah, obviously, I mean, I don't know what else can we say about him. If he wins the Premier League title and if he makes it a treble or he wins the Champions League, he will be, I think, the best Premier League player ever, considering what
Uh,
he has done.
I mean,
I
he's
would put him.
definitely, the
He's
best
top three right now.
right winger for
I,
sure, no
I'm
question about
I'm saying it out there. He's, I think, the best Premier League player because of what he has done at the age at what he's doing. See, the
it.
likes of Ronaldo, the likes of, I think Rooney had tailed off by this age. The likes of Ronaldo had gone to Real Madrid and then to Juventus. So Salah is 32 and he's putting up Lionel Messi numbers like Lionel Messi was in his prime at Barcelona
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
probably the most physical league out there. And this guy does not get the fouls that he should be getting. In the Newcastle game, he was tripped in the box, right? And the referee didn't give him a foul. I don't know how you can not do that. So Salah, if he wins the Premier League, and I hope he stays a few more seasons and breaks more records, he will be considered as the best Premier League player ever.
So yeah, I mean, he's definitely in the top, top 11, the starting 11 of the, all-time greats, and so is Van Dijk, to be honest with you. So I think Van Dijk, Alisson, and Salah having three of like arguably all-time, greats in your first 11. I think that speaks volumes about your team's pedigree and the fact that it's been built over so many years. Okay, amazing. I think we can move on. We talked about how well your team is doing. Let's talk about how badly my team is doing, right? So, the last week started off with Chelsea losing to Villa, and that was a pretty heartbreaking win because Chelsea got the lead, and usually they do get the lead, right? They do play decent football to begin with, but then, they concede an equalizer. And right at the very end, Jorgensen, who's our new number one goalkeeper, he basically conceded a howler to Marco Asensio. Asensio hit it straight into his hands, and he let it basically go through his hands and into the goal, right? Uh, After the game, Maresca came out and basically gave a lot of support to Jorgensen. He said, strikers make mistakes too, but goalkeepers' mistakes are just magnified, which I guess makes sense. But the funny thing is, Jorgensen was in the team because Robert Sanchez always was making like these gigantic errors every game and costing us a goal per game. But so has Jorgensen for now. Sometimes he hasn't been punished, but we were clearly punished in this case, right? So here's one of the recruitment issues that I want to talk about, right? Chelsea have, I think, 7 or 8 goalkeepers in and
Yeah.
around the team, right? Kepa is still at Chelsea. He's on loan at Bournemouth. He's doing decent actually. Of course, we have Jorgensen, Robert Sanchez. We have this young kid called Mike Penders. We have, folks from the MLS that we got, Gaga Slonina. God knows how many other keepers, right? And I wrote this down, in American football, they say if you have 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you basically don't have one, right? So you shouldn't have like multiple goalkeepers who are like just okay and you can just throw into the team, right? So this shows you, maybe a flaw in our recruitment strategies. We've gone after a whole bunch of like mediocre, okayish goalkeepers, maybe some with future potential, but nobody like an Alisson, right? You guys went ahead and got like a top keeper at, when you did back in the day, and you're still reaping the benefits, right? So I don't know what you think about this, just doing a scattergun approach and like accumulating players so that I don't know, maybe you can sell them later on. I don't know what the strategy is.
I think that's the strategy. You've hit the nail on the head. I think that's keeping players, giving them maybe some game time, and then selling them off for better. I mean, for a higher margin, a profit. I think you touched upon this a few weeks back that you're running this as a business and not as a
Yeah.
football club, and that's not going to work out ultimately because you spoke about this that there were protests against the owners. I think
Yeah.
last week.
The Southampton game. Yep.
The Southampton game. So obviously the fans will not be happy. See, ultimately, uh, keeping the accounts healthy and showing that we made 50 million profits and all, that's all fair and good for the owners. But for the fans, it's all about winning, right?
No,
You
but
want to
but the weird part is it's okay. It's good to make a profit. It's good. But
no,
the problem is these guys are not even making a profit because then they'll go and spend like 120 million on like I said, or 130 million on Enzo, which doesn't make any sense. And
yeah, no, no.
he's
So I'm
still paying like Sterling and all of these guys, right?
I'm getting to that. So that's the thing. So if you guys were still, let's say, second or third, and in
Yeah.
a few cup compet, I think you still are in the FA Cup, right?
No, only in the Conference League.
Only in the Conference League. Okay, so that's obviously another pain point. So what I was saying that if you were in all these cup competitions and there was like a chance of you winning something, I don't think there would have been that many protests. You're not in the
Yeah,
top four.
for sure.
That's a big issue. So I think it's finally getting to the fans. Like, I understand where they are coming from because they're like, okay, we've given them time. We've seen what this new business model under Todd Bowley is, and it's not reaping the rewards. You rightly said you guys have spent money on getting good
Yeah,
signings. Enzo Fernandez,
1.5 billion.
Caicedo, Cucurella. You look at the forwards. You've got Nkunku, who was possibly the hottest prospect in the Bundesliga. Wow, Felix came in and went away. So yeah,
Wow,
so,
Felix. It's like again some money laundering.
yeah, so it will get to the people, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously, it's going to be a problem in the long run because, as I said this with FSG, and I don't know if Todd Bowley needs to know this, football is not an American sport. It's not like there is no relegation. It's not like, okay, I came 30th in the NBA, but I will still make a lot of money through sales of
No, you
tickets
won't.
and
Yeah.
hospitality seats. I think
Mhm.
NBA works with that thing that you need to sell out your stadium to make a profit, and obviously you get whatever you get based on your finishes, etc. I think it goes to the same for MLB and NFL, etc. Football is not that. It is a very highly competitive uh, game, and the Premier League so shows that. Like, you need to do well. You need to be in the Champions League consistently. You guys don't have a sponsor, yeah, because you're not in the Champions League. Basically, you want a better sponsor.
Yeah.
So
We talked about that, right? That could have been solved, right? You sign a deal with the sponsor and tell them, okay, if next year we get,
yeah, it's
Champions League,
so
you have to
simple.
increase. Yeah, it's not that
Yeah,
complicated.
you don't get a
Pretty
20
simple.
million per year deal. You get a 10 million per year deal, but you get
Yeah.
something in, right? Something is better than nothing. I don't understand the logic. Excuse me, behind that.
There's no logic. Actually, that's a good segue, right? You brought up the protest. There were protests at Chelsea's game against Southampton. Thankfully, Chelsea won that game pretty easily, and we were fourth for a small amount of time. Now we're fifth after Man City won, but we're still, only 2 points behind from third. So overall, Maresca has done a decent job, right? But the protest was against the ownership, and then Bowley actually, I think yesterday or day before, he went to some conference, some economic conference in sports or something in London, and he basically said, "Yeah, protests are par for the course, right?" He thinks,
Oh,
yeah. So basically, it's like, that doesn't really matter, right? But again, you made a really good point. He doesn't understand, like, how kind of the European football or soccer works, right? Protests and fans are really, really passionate about their teams, and people will just stop watching after a point of time, stop buying tickets, stop, buying merchandise and so on and so forth. And you can't blame them, right? You can only take so much of watching your team lose again and again and again, right? And this is an interesting thing I've also observed, right? The new generation, right? The younger kids will stop following, club, especially globally, right? For example, I've seen how much Man City's support has gone up. Like when we were growing up, barely
yeah.
anybody supported Man City, right? But I've seen so many young kids now support Man City because of the results, right? And that obviously adds to their revenue and things like that. You can't be, horrible and play horribly and, not get like sixth, seventh place finishes and expect to grow your business. Doesn't make any business sense either. I think you hit the nail on the head there again.
No, so the thing is that if you guys had lost to Southampton, right, there would have been riots, like proper full-fledged riots, and there would be some French Revolution stuff going on, man. They'd catch Todd Bowley, put him in the guillotine or something, man. I'm telling you right now, that's like the last thing you would need. I think the players were scared also. But I sometimes feel for the players and also for Maresca for the spot that he's been
Agreed.
put in, because I was reading about this in I think I saw it in another podcast or something. Is that none of the Chelsea higher ups ever speak about what's going on at Chelsea. And all the questions are fielded towards Maresca, right? And
Yeah, and I mean, when they do speak up, they say things like, "Oh, the protests are just par for the course." I mean,
I
I don't
like
know.
that's crazy. It's like let them have cake if you don't have bread or something like that. If you don't have
Yeah.
bread, let them have cake. I mean, you can't say stuff like this, man. It's insane. So it's sad for Maresca. And I think there was some quote from Maresca that came out and it made a few headlines that said that what something about Cole Palmer not being happy about the
Hmm.
situation, or Cole Palmer and the Champions League or something like that. Maybe you could throw
Yeah, I
some light on
think
that.
there's obviously going to be all these rumors and speculations, right? I think there was a speculation at one point of time that some of the players might have, an out in their contract. Like if you don't qualify for the Champions League X number of times, they can leave. But that's
Oh,
apparently not true. But Palmer, you bring a good point, right? Palmer's form has declined quite a bit, right? No goals or assists in the last 6 or 7 games. And then he's been visibly frustrated on the field as well, right? And you can see that. And journalists asked Maresca about not only Palmer's form, but also his behavior, because he's not just been frustrated on himself, but his teammates as well. Justifiably so, because I
Yeah.
think he's created like 25 or 30, clear-cut opportunities without an assist. But these things are obvious, right? If you're not getting the performances on the field, these things are going to creep up. The only good thing right now is we have a conference league game coming up, in 6 or 7 days' time. So no games this weekend. And then we have Leicester. Hopefully we can win and gather some momentum. And by
Oh,
that time,
if you
maybe,
don't win against Leicester,
oh,
it's gonna be
Leicester so
right.
bad.
Oh my God.
But let's see. I think we have a few players coming back as well. Notably, Wesley Fofana was on the bench in the last game. I think maybe by the time we play Leicester, he might get to see some minutes. I think he's critical to our defense. So let's see if we can have a decent finish. And maybe they're saying the fifth spot is also going to get a Champions League
Hmm.
spot this time, right? For in the Premier League. So maybe even if we get fifth, that might not be bad. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think Chelsea getting into the Champions League is important, but it might not be easy given how Bournemouth are doing, how Newcastle are terrible. Sorry, how Bournemouth are doing and how Nottingham Forest are doing. I think
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
City are still there in the running. So there's at least something to play for, and hopefully Todd Bowley can keep his mouth shut until the end of the season and let Maresca do what he needs to do. But yeah, I think that's about it for this week's episode.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot to talk about next week after the Champions League fixtures
Oh
and some
yeah, you
FA Cup
guys are
games.
playing PSG, man. I'm
PSG.
looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Slot said quite a few things about him. So he's like,
Mm.
what the PSG are always running away with the league or something like that. And it'll be interesting to see how we do against them. So first proper test, I think in Europe for us, like home and away, right? So we scamper like we completely dominated the group stage, but obviously this is going to be something else. Will I don't know. I want to see how we do, like how far can we get in the Champions League because there's a very good chance we could face Real Madrid or
Mm.
Arsenal in the Champions League, right? And that'd be amazing. I think Champions League semi. So lots of interesting permutation and combinations. And to the fans, please do support us, like, share, and subscribe to our content. I don't know why you people are not liking our content as much as you used to. Put some comments in there, ask us questions. We're always free to answer your queries. And until next time, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.